Welcome, my friend. This is the Sleepy Hub for sleepy history and more. Tonight we journey into the world of vibration and sound with a sleepy history of music, ending with a relaxing meditation to gently release you into sleep. But first, let's take the next few minutes to relax the body and prepare for sleep. Take a deep breath in and let it out slowly. Feel the air moving gently through your body, like a quiet song that has always been with you. Allow your shoulders to soften, your jaw to loosen, and your hands to rest comfortably by your side. There is nothing you need to do now but listen and drift. Tonight, we'll wander together through the story of music, not as scholars or critics, but simply as friends, following the trail of sound through time. Music has always been with us. Before there were cities, before there were books, there was rhythm in our footsteps, in the heartbeat of those we love, in the rise and fall of our voices. As you rest here, imagine yourself curled in a blanket of sound, gentle, safe, timeless. Music has always been our companion. The lullabies that soothed us as children, the drums that brought communities together, the songs that carried joy and sorrow through generations. So let's begin this journey softly, without hurry. The story of music is the story of us. And tonight, you are free to float in it like a note carried on a breeze, drifting into dreams. Chapter 1: The First Sounds. Long before there were orchestras or guitars, music was born in the simplest of ways. Imagine a small circle of people gathered around a fire thousands of years ago. The night is dark, but the flames flicker and dance, casting shadows on the faces nearby. Someone taps two stones together, and another begins to hum. Slowly, rhythm and voice fill the night. This was the beginning. The human voice was our very first instrument. With it, people could cry out in warning, call out in joy, or soothe a child with a gentle tune. The voice carried emotion in ways words alone could not. A melody could travel farther than speech, reaching hearts before minds. And so, the first songs were born. Wordless hums, chants, and lullabies that wrapped families in comfort. Soon, humans discovered rhythm in the world around them. Hollow logs could be struck to make deep, rolling sounds. Bones and reeds could be carved into flutes. Animal skins stretched over frames became drums that echoed like thunder. Archaeologists have found flutes made from bird bones dating back more than 40,000 years. Proof that even our earliest ancestors longed for music. Music was never only for entertainment, it was survival. Rhythm helped coordinate work, like rowing boats in unison or grinding grain together. Songs kept stories alive in a time before writing. Music could call communities to gather, mark the change of seasons, or send prayers into the night sky. In every corner of the world, music became part of ritual. To honor ancestors, to celebrate harvests, to guide the spirit in times of sorrow. And even in those ancient times, music carried comfort. Imagine a mother rocking her child in a cave, softly humming. Or a hunter returning to the fire, welcomed by the sound of drums and voices. Music gave meaning to moments, turning the ordinary into the sacred. Over time, instruments grew more complex. Strings were stretched across wood to make harps and lyres. Shells were used as horns. Little by little, sound became art, and art became tradition. But through it all, one truth remained. Music was human connection, expressed through vibration and voice. When you close your eyes, you can almost hear it. The crackle of the fire, the steady beat of a drum, a flute singing into the night. These were the first concerts, simple, heartfelt, timeless. And as you imagine that distant world, you might notice something familiar. The music of then is not so different from the music of now. It still comforts us, it still gathers us, it still helps us feel less alone. So rest now, knowing that the very first sounds humanity ever made were songs, born not from grand stages, but from love, community, and the simple joy of being alive. And in that simplicity lies the heart of music, still carrying us forward, one note at a time. Chapter 2: Ancient Civilizations. As humanity began to build cities and civilizations, music traveled with us, no longer only by the fire, but into temples, palaces, and marketplaces. Each culture found its own way of shaping sound, weaving it into daily life, ritual, and celebration. In the deserts of Egypt, music was everywhere. Imagine the golden sun setting over the Nile, its waters glowing as boats glide silently along. On the shore, a small gathering forms. Someone plucks the strings of a harp, the notes shimmering in the evening air. Another shakes a sistrum, a rattle made of metal, creating a bright, sparkling sound like bells in motion. These instruments weren't just for pleasure. They were used in ceremonies to honor the gods, to bless harvests, to celebrate life. For the Egyptians, music was divine. It connected earth and sky, people and spirit. Farther east, in Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, music played a similar role. Clay tablets from thousands of years ago show some of the earliest written notations of sound. Here the lyre was beloved, its deep, resonant tones carrying songs across courtyards and temples. Imagine a priestess singing softly, her voice rising with the strings, offering hymns to unseen powers. Music was prayer, story, and memory, a way to keep culture alive. In Greece, music blossomed into something even more philosophical. The word itself, music, comes from the muses, the divine inspirers of art and knowledge. For the Greeks, sound was not only beauty, but truth. They believed the universe itself moved in harmony, like a grand, eternal song, what they called the harmony of the spheres. To them, playing a lyre or singing a hymn wasn't just entertainment, it was aligning oneself with the cosmos. Picture a Greek amphitheater carved into the hillside, where voices and instruments carry effortlessly to thousands of listeners. The air is filled with drama, poetry, and song. Children learn music as part of their education, for to be truly human meant to understand rhythm, melody, and harmony. And yet, even with all this philosophy and grandeur, music remained deeply human. Farmers sang as they sowed their fields. Sailors hummed as they rowed their boats. Mothers still rocked their children with lullabies. Across civilizations, music was a thread that tied together the sacred and the ordinary, the mighty and the humble. Perhaps what is most beautiful about these ancient sounds is that we can still feel them today. A harp in a museum, its strings long silent, still carries the memory of those who played it. The words of Greek philosophers, speaking of harmony and rhythm, still inspire musicians centuries later. And the lullabies sung to children then are not so different from the ones whispered now. So as you rest, imagine yourself drifting among these ancient worlds. The shimmer of an Egyptian harp, the deep tones of a Mesopotamian lyre, the thoughtful songs of Greece rising into the night. These were the beginnings of music as art, as philosophy, as worship. But underneath all of it, the heart remained the same. Music as connection, music as comfort, music as a reflection of who we are. Chapter 3, the music of faith. As civilizations grew, music found one of its deepest purposes, to connect humanity with the divine. Across cultures, people turned to sound when words alone felt too small. Music became prayer, devotion, a way to bridge the seen and the unseen. In medieval Europe, this devotion took the form of Gregorian chant. Imagine walking into a stone cathedral, the air cool and still. Sunlight filters through stained glass, coloring the walls with soft light. From the shadows, a group of monks begins to sing. Their voices rise together, not in complex melodies, but in simple, flowing lines that drift upward like smoke. There are no instruments, only human voices blending as one. The sound fills the vast space, echoing endlessly, until it feels less like singing and more like breathing with the universe itself. These chants were not meant to dazzle or impress. They were meant to still the mind, to lift the heart. For those who listened, it was as though time itself slowed, allowing space for prayer, reflection, and peace. Even now, centuries later, these melodies carry the same power. Close your eyes and you can almost hear them. Calm, steady, eternal. Far from Europe, in the Islamic world, music of faith took a different form. 5 times each day, the call to prayer, the adhan, rose above the rooftops of cities and villages. A single voice, strong and clear, carrying words that invited people to pause, to turn inward, to remember the sacred. The call was not accompanied by instruments, but it did not need them. The beauty was in the voice itself, in the way it curved and soared, weaving devotion into the very air. For those who heard it, the world seemed to hush, if only for a moment, to make space for God. In India, music of faith blossomed in the form of ragas. Each raga was more than a melody. It was a mood, a time of day, a doorway to the divine. A raga played at dawn might feel like the sun slowly rising, while one played at night might echo the quiet of the stars. Instruments like the sitar and tabla joined with voices to create music that was both earthly and transcendent. For centuries, ragas have been used not only in temples, but in meditation, healing, and spiritual awakening. And in countless other cultures, music carried faith in its own ways. In Africa, drums spoke to ancestors. In native traditions, songs were offered to the spirits of the land, to the animals, to the sky above. In every corner of the world, music became the language of prayer. Different in form, but united in purpose. What all these traditions share is the understanding that sound can move us closer to the sacred. A chant echoing in a cathedral, a voice rising in the call to prayer, a raga unfolding in the stillness of dawn. Each is a reminder that music does not belong only to the human world. It touches something beyond us, something infinite. So tonight, as you listen, you might imagine yourself sitting quietly in one of these sacred spaces. Perhaps you are in a cool stone chapel, candlelight flickering as voices rise in chant, or in a bustling city, pausing as the call to prayer drifts through the air, or in a quiet garden, hearing the strains of a raga as the sky blushes with dawn. Each sound, though different, carries the same essence: stillness, reverence, peace. Music of faith reminds us that we are never alone, that no matter where we are or what we believe, there is always a song waiting to guide us home. Chapter 4: Medieval and Renaissance Music. As time moved forward, music began to weave itself not only into faith, but into daily life, into celebration, and into art. The medieval and Renaissance eras were times of transformation, when music slowly stepped out of the shadows of ritual and began to shine as its own form of beauty. Imagine a medieval town square. The air is alive with chatter, the smell of bread baking, and the sound of horses' hooves on cobblestone. Then, above the noise, a clear voice rings out. A troubadour, carrying a simple lute, begins to sing. His song tells a story of love, of bravery, of faraway lands. People gather around, drawn not only to the melody but to the tale. For many, this was how stories travelled, carried in song from village to village. Music was the newspaper, the theatre, the novel, all before such things existed. At the same time, in the courts of kings and queens, music was flourishing in new ways. Wealth and power allowed musicians to experiment, to compose pieces not just for prayer, but for pleasure. Early forms of notation, simple symbols scratched onto parchment, allowed music to be remembered, taught, and shared more widely than ever before. What had once been fleeting sound now became something that could endure. As the Renaissance dawned, music blossomed like a garden in full bloom. Polyphony, the weaving together of multiple melodies at once, became popular. Imagine standing in a grand cathedral as voices rise, not just one after another, but layered, flowing, intertwining. Each line of music moving independently, yet blending into harmony. Composers like Palestrina and Josquin mastered this art, creating works that felt both intricate and effortless, like lace spun from sound. Instruments, too, were changing. The lute, with its warm, gentle tone, became a favorite across Europe. Harpsichords filled rooms with their delicate sparkle. Recorders and viols brought new colors to ensembles. Music was no longer confined to monasteries or courts. It began to belong to anyone who could sing or play. Families gathered around to make music together, just as naturally as sharing a meal. But perhaps most importantly, music of the medieval and Renaissance periods reflected the joy of discovery. These were times when people were looking outward, exploring the world, questioning old ideas, and finding beauty in art, science, and human creativity. Music mirrored this spirit. It became not just an offering to the divine, but a celebration of life itself. Picture yourself walking through a Renaissance city, Florence, Venice, or Paris. The streets are filled with art, with color, with possibility. From a chapel comes the sound of polyphonic voices soaring. From a courtyard, a small group plays lutes and flutes in gentle harmony. Everywhere music is alive, not as background, but as part of the very soul of the time. And yet, even amid all this innovation, the heart of music remained familiar. Lullabies were still sung at night. Simple songs were still hummed during work. Villagers still gathered to dance. The great compositions of the Renaissance may have been grand and complex, but the essence of music, comfort, connection, joy, was still the same as it had been around the fire long ago. So as you drift now, imagine yourself in that time. A troubadour's voice telling a tale in the square. A family singing softly by firelight. Voices rising together in a cathedral, echoing upward until they seem to touch the heavens. These are the sounds of the medieval and Renaissance world, timeless, human, and full of warmth. Chapter 5. The Baroque Era. As the Renaissance gave way to the 1600s, music stepped into a new chapter, one filled with richness, detail, and drama. This was the Baroque era, a time when music shimmered with ornament and grandeur, yet still carried the human heart at its center. Picture yourself in a grand European hall. The walls adorned with gold, candles glowing softly in crystal holders. A small orchestra begins to play, and and suddenly the room fills with intricate patterns of sound, each note flowing into the next like a carefully woven tapestry. This was the sound of the Baroque, music that delighted in detail, in movement, in energy. One of the great masters of this time was Johann Sebastian Bach. His music was like architecture in sound, strong, balanced, beautifully crafted. When Bach wrote, he seemed to take simple themes and spin them into entire cathedrals of melody, each line supporting the others. Yet even in their complexity, his works carried warmth and devotion. Imagine him at the organ in a church, his fingers dancing across the keys as the sound rose like sunlight through stained glass. Handel, another giant of the era, brought drama to the stage. He composed operas and oratorios that told stories through powerful choruses and soaring arias. Perhaps his most famous piece, the Hallelujah Chorus, still sends shivers down spines today. Picture a crowded theatre in London, the audience rising to their feet as the music bursts forth in joy. Even centuries later, his music still carries that same triumphant spirit. And then there was Vivaldi, whose Four Seasons painted pictures with sound. Listen closely, and you can hear birds singing in spring, storms crashing in summer, the harvest dances of autumn, and the quiet frost of winter. Vivaldi reminded us that music could capture not only human feeling, but the very essence of nature itself. The Baroque era also saw the birth of new instruments and forms. The violin family came into its own, its singing tone becoming central to orchestras. Harpsichords sparkled in chamber music, their notes bright and crisp. The concerto was born, pieces that highlighted a soloist, often in dazzling display against the backdrop of an ensemble. Audiences marveled at the interplay between the one and the many, the intimate and the grand. Opera too grew in this period, blending theatre, poetry and music into a single art. Imagine sitting in a candlelit opera house in Venice, the curtain rising to reveal costumes, sets, and voices that carried tales of love, betrayal, and triumph. For many, opera was not just entertainment, but an immersion into another world, one carried on waves of music. Yet, for all its complexity and ornament, the heart of Baroque music was not pretentiousness. It was joy. Composers wrote for kings and churches, yes, but also for ordinary gatherings, dances and festivals. A simple violin melody played in a town square, a harpsichord piece at a family table, a hymn sung in a small parish. These too were part of the era's sound. If you listen closely, you can feel the Baroque spirit, a love of movement, a delight in detail, a joy in life's rhythms. The music seems to say, the world is full, abundant, overflowing, and we are here to celebrate it. So as you rest tonight, imagine yourself drifting through a Baroque landscape. Perhaps you're in a candlelit hall, hearing Bach's counterpoint rise like arches of sound. Or maybe you're outside, listening to Vivaldi's Summer Storm rumble across the strings. Wherever you are, the music surrounds you, intricate yet welcoming, powerful yet gentle. And as your body softens, you may notice how even the most complex patterns can bring peace. Just as Baroque composers wove countless notes into harmony, your thoughts too can weave themselves into rest. The music of the Baroque reminds us that beauty lies not only in simplicity, but also in the richness of life when all its parts come together. Chapter 6. The Classical Era. As the 1700s moved toward the late 18th century, music began to change again. The ornate flourishes of the Baroque gave way to something clearer, simpler, and more balanced. This was the Classical Era, a time when elegance and grace became the guiding principles of sound. Imagine a grand concert hall in Vienna, chandeliers glowing, rows of seats filled with listeners waiting in quiet anticipation. The orchestra lifts their instruments and suddenly, the room is filled with music that is bright, clear, and beautifully balanced. Each melody sings with purpose. Each harmony fits perfectly into place, like pieces of a gentle puzzle. This was music designed to soothe the mind as well as stir the heart. Joseph Haydn, often called the father of the symphony, was one of the era's guiding lights. He wrote hundreds of works, each carefully crafted, each carrying a sense of wit and warmth. Haydn's music was playful at times, surprising audiences with sudden pauses or unexpected turns. He reminded listeners that music could smile, that it could delight as much as inspire. Then came Mozart, a name that has become almost synonymous with genius. Mozart's music seemed effortless, flowing as naturally as a conversation between friends. His melodies are simple yet profound, the kind that linger in the mind long after the notes have faded. Imagine sitting in a small room while Mozart himself plays at the keyboard, his fingers dancing lightly, his eyes sparkling with joy. His music carried grace, humor, tenderness, and drama, all wrapped in clarity that felt as though it had always existed, waiting to be discovered. And then there was Beethoven, who bridged the classical world and what would come after. In his early works, he followed the traditions of Mozart and Haydn, writing symphonies and sonatas filled with elegance and order. But even in these, there was something new, a deeper passion, a sense of intensity that hinted at the romantic era to come. Beethoven's music could be soft as a whisper, or powerful as a storm, yet always human, always honest. The classical era also shaped the way we experience music even today. The symphony and the string quartet became standard forms. Concerts became more public, more accessible, no longer only for the wealthy elite. Music was for everyone, something to be shared and enjoyed together. What made classical music so special was its balance. It was never too heavy, never too light. It carried clarity like a clear stream, flowing smoothly, refreshing, and calming. Even in its most dramatic moments, there was order, as if the music itself were gently reassuring us. All is in harmony. All is well. Picture yourself drifting into that sound, Mozart's melodies floating like birdsong, Haydn's symphonies smiling with wit, Beethoven's early works glowing with fire and heart. The hall is quiet, the chandeliers shimmer, the air is alive with sound that feels timeless, eternal. And as you rest, you may notice how this music mirrors your own breath. Inhale, a phrase begins. Exhale, it resolves, gently, naturally. Like life itself, the music moves in cycles, rising and falling, always returning to peace. The classical era reminds us that beauty can be found in balance, that even amid change, there can be clarity, simplicity, and calm. And as the melodies fade into silence, you are left with a sense of harmony, both in the music and within yourself. Chapter 7, The Romantic Era. As the 1800s unfolded, music began to shift once more. The neat balance and clarity of the classical age gave way to something more expansive, more emotional, more deeply human. This was the Romantic Era, a time when composers poured their feelings into sound, love and longing, triumph and tragedy, whispers and storms. Imagine sitting in a dimly lit salon in Paris. The room is hushed as a young man sits at the piano. His name is Frédéric Chopin. His fingers touch the keys gently at first, then with sudden intensity, and the room fills with music that seems to breathe. Chopin's pieces were not grand symphonies for large halls, but intimate, personal works, nocturnes, preludes, waltzes, each like a diary entry set to sound. His melodies sighed with tenderness, shimmered with melancholy, and lifted like quiet prayers. Listening to Chopin was like overhearing someone's most private thoughts, spoken not in words, but in music. Elsewhere, Franz Liszt was dazzling audiences with a very different kind of power. Tall, handsome, and brilliant, he played the piano with such energy and passion that people swooned. His performances were almost like rock concerts of their day, with fans clamoring for a glimpse of him. Liszt's music was bold, dramatic, virtuosic, yet at its heart, it still carried the soul of the romantic spirit. The idea that music could capture the depths of human emotion. In Germany, Richard Wagner created operas unlike anything the world had seen before. His works were vast and dramatic, filled with sweeping orchestras and mythical tales. The music thundered with power, carrying audiences into worlds of gods, heroes, and epic journeys. Wagner believed that music could be more than sound. It could be total experience, a blending of story, theatre, and art. His operas were like dreams brought to life, stirring emotions too deep for words. The Romantic era also celebrated the spirit of nations. Composers drew on folk songs and traditions from their homelands, weaving them into symphonies and dances. In Russia, Tchaikovsky wrote ballets that shimmered with grace and drama. Swan Lake, The Nutcracker, stories told through music that still enchant us today. In Norway, Grieg captured the rugged beauty of his landscapes in his piano pieces. Everywhere, music became a way to express identity, to say, this is who we are, this is where we belong. But perhaps what makes the Romantic era so touching is how deeply human it feels. These composers were not afraid to show vulnerability. Their music held not just triumph, but struggle, not just joy, but sorrow. It mirrored the complexity of being alive. A soft piano melody might carry longing so tender it brings tears. A symphony might rage with storms before breaking into radiant light. The music embraced all of it, reminding listeners that to feel deeply is to live fully. Picture yourself surrounded by this sound, Chopin's nocturne drifting like candlelight in a quiet room. Liszt's thunderous piano striking like lightning across the sky. Wagner's orchestra sweeping you into a mythic dream. Tchaikovsky's melodies lifting like snowflakes in the air. Each note carries passion, vulnerability, beauty. And as you listen, you may notice how this music mirrors the heart. Sometimes calm, sometimes restless, sometimes aching, sometimes overflowing with joy. Romantic music says, it is all welcome. Every feeling has a place. Every emotion can become melody. So as you rest now, let the Romantic era cradle you. Breathe in its tenderness, its storms, its warmth. Feel how it reminds you of your own humanity, that you are allowed to feel, to love, to dream. The Romantic composers left us music that is not only grand, but personal. Music that whispers, you are alive, and that is beautiful. Chapter 8, the 20th century, a brave new sound. The dawn of the 20th century brought with it not only new inventions and faster ways of living, but also new ways of listening. Music, like the world itself, was changing, stretching, bending, sometimes breaking apart, and then piecing itself back together in ways no one had ever heard before. For centuries, composers had followed familiar patterns, with harmonies that resolved neatly, and melodies that flowed like rivers. But now, the river was widening, branching, sometimes rushing, sometimes pooling into unexpected stillness. Some composers, like Debussy in France, painted with sound the way an artist paints with color. His music shimmered like light through water, a dreamy escape from rigid rules. Others, like Stravinsky, startled audiences with rhythms that pounded and twisted, as though the earth itself were dancing in new, unpredictable ways. Technology also became a companion in this age. For the first time, music could be recorded and replayed. Imagine the wonder. No longer was music only for those who could attend a concert. Now, a small disc could carry a voice or a piano into homes around the world. The gramophone, the radio, and later the record player and television. These inventions made music a part of everyday life. A song could travel farther than any singer's voice, across oceans and into hearts. Jazz blossomed during this time too, springing up from the streets of New Orleans and weaving its way across America and then the world. It was music of improvisation and freedom, a conversation in sound where no two performances were ever the same. From Louis Armstrong's trumpet to Duke Ellington's orchestras, jazz carried joy, sorrow, and an unstoppable energy that seemed to dance on its own. Meanwhile, classical music itself kept evolving. Composers like Shostakovich, Copland, and Bartók reflected the turbulence of their times, sometimes writing music that was bold and unsettling, sometimes creating pieces that offered calm and hope. It was as though the orchestra had learned to speak in every possible voice, gentle, fierce, mysterious, and sublime. And then came popular music as we know it, blues, rock and roll, soul, and folk, each carrying stories of everyday people. The Beatles and Bob Dylan, Billie Holiday and Elvis Presley, voices that spoke to millions, each becoming part of the great tapestry. The 20th century was a kaleidoscope of sound. No single path, no single rule. Music was no longer bound to one tradition or style. It could be grand or simple, written or improvised, played on a violin or through an electric guitar, shared in a concert hall or on a crackling radio. It was all music, and it all belonged. As the century closed, one thing became clear. Music would never again be confined. It had broken free into every corner of the world, reflecting the diversity, struggles, and dreams of humanity itself. And so, as we drift into sleep, we remember that the 20th century's music was like life in that age, surprising, restless, daring, and always reaching for something new. Chapter 9: Music in Our Modern World. As we step gently into the modern world, music feels closer to us than ever before. It hums in our earbuds as we walk, floats from car windows at stoplights, and streams endlessly from phones, speakers, and screens. Unlike any other time in history, music is everywhere, woven into our daily lives like air, like light. Technology has made this possible. Where once you had to sit in a concert hall or hold a vinyl record in your hands, now a song can appear in seconds, delivered across invisible waves. A voice recorded in a small room can reach millions within moments, carrying emotion and connection farther and faster than the imagination of any earlier age. And the variety, oh, the variety. Every genre that ever blossomed, from folk to jazz to rock to classical, still lives on today, side by side, with countless new creations. Electronic beats pulse in clubs, while symphonies are still performed in grand halls. Pop stars fill stadiums, while indie musicians strum softly in cafes. Somewhere at this very moment, a child is discovering the piano, a teenager is uploading a song from their bedroom, and a choir is filling a church with ancient harmonies. Music has also become a tool of identity. Playlists tell our stories, shaping moods and memories. A favorite song becomes a comfort during hard days, or a spark of joy in celebration. Entire communities are built around shared love of a band, a genre, or even a single song. Music, once tied to place and tradition, is now both deeply personal and widely shared. It has also become a bridge. In this global age, artists from different cultures collaborate with ease. African rhythms blend with Latin melodies, Asian instruments meet Western harmonies, and out of this tapestry come sounds that belong to no single place, but to all of us. Music reminds us, perhaps more than anything, that we are one human family, each voice unique, yet all connected. And in the quiet corners of our modern lives, music still holds its oldest magic. A lullaby sung to a baby, a hum while cooking, a song played softly at night. These moments remind us that even with all the technology and change, music's heart has not shifted. It is still a way of expressing love, of soothing the soul, of reminding us we are not alone. So, in this present moment, music is both timeless and brand new. It carries the echoes of the past, the boldness of invention, and the intimacy of human connection. It belongs to you, to me, to everyone. And as you rest tonight, perhaps you'll hear it too, the faint hum of the modern world's endless music, a gentle reminder that you are part of a vast, beautiful song still being written. Chapter 10, The Future of Music. As we leave the 20th century and step into today, our journey naturally leads us to wonder, what comes next? Music has always evolved alongside humanity, shaped by our tools, our dreams, and the ways we connect with each other. The future of music is already unfolding before our eyes and our ears. One of the most exciting shifts is how technology continues to open new doors. Just as the piano and the electric guitar once revolutionized sound, now digital tools and artificial intelligence are offering fresh possibilities. Imagine songs composed in collaboration between human emotion and machine precision, blends of creativity and innovation that expand what music can be. Already, artists experiment with AI-generated harmonies, virtual orchestras, and instruments that exist only in the digital realm. And yet, at the heart of it all, it is still human feeling that gives these creations life. The future is also deeply communal. For centuries, music has been performed in concert halls, clubs, and festivals. But now it can happen anywhere, for anyone, at any time. Through live streams, online collaborations, and even virtual reality stages, listeners and performers connect across continents, sharing a single beat in real time. One day, you might step into a virtual concert hall from your living room, standing side by side with people from every corner of the world, all moved by the same melody. But even as the digital age expands, there is a return to intimacy too. Many people are finding joy in small acoustic performances, in gathering with friends, in reconnecting with the raw simplicity of voice and instrument. In this way, the future of music holds both the boundless expanse of new technology and the timeless comfort of the oldest lullabies. And then, there is the way music may heal us. Sound therapy and vibrational medicine are gaining recognition. Researchers explore how frequencies affect our bodies, our minds, even our cells. It's possible that in the years ahead, music will not only move our emotions, but also become a regular part of our well-being, prescribed not just for enjoyment, but for health, balance, and peace. Finally, music may carry us into entirely new worlds. Imagine astronauts on Mars listening to symphonies as they gaze at the red horizon, or songs crafted from the data of distant stars, their light translated into melody. Music has always been a bridge between the earthly and the cosmic, and in the future, it may become our companion as we journey further into the universe. And so, the story of music is not finished. It never will be. Every heartbeat, every song yet unwritten, every voice yet unheard is part of its unfolding. The future of music is vast, bright, and limitless, just like the future of humanity itself. Bonus chapter, a dreamy music meditation. Now, dear listener, we come to the quietest part of our journey. You've traveled through the ages of music. Ancient rhythms, sacred chants, the elegance of classical, the passion of romance, the boldness of jazz, the power of rock, and the vast soundscape of our modern world. And now, it is time to let the music rest with you. Close your eyes if you haven't already. And take a soft, deep breath in. Hold it gently, then let it drift out like the release of a final note. Imagine yourself in a vast concert hall, but this one is unlike any you've seen before. The ceiling is a sky of stars, glittering softly above. The walls are made of warm wood that seems to breathe with you. And on the stage, an orchestra of all the ages sits together, harps beside electric guitars, violins alongside jazz trumpets, ancient drums keeping time with shimmering synthesizers. They do not play loudly. Instead, they play softly, almost like a whisper, just enough for you to feel the music in your heart. Each note is gentle, wrapping around you like a blanket. The melody flows like a lullaby, carrying the story of human sound, of every voice and every instrument that has ever existed. Perhaps you hear a flute, light and airy, like a bird calling in the morning. Perhaps a cello, rich and deep, grounding you like the roots of a tree. Maybe a piano, each note like a drop of water, rippling calmly. And then, your own heart joins in. Its steady beat becomes part of the orchestra, reminding you that you too are music. You are rhythm, you are harmony, you are song. Breathe with it now, in and out, slow, steady, gentle. Each breath a phrase of the music, each moment a part of the great composition of life. And as the orchestra fades, the sound does not vanish. It remains inside you, warm and calm. You carry the music with you, into your dreams, into tomorrow, into every step you take. For music is never gone. It is always here, waiting to comfort you, to inspire you, to remind you of the beauty that exists within and around you. So now, let the music cradle you. Let the melody of the ages sing you softly to sleep. The story is complete, but your dream continues. Good night, dear one. May your rest be peaceful, your dreams harmonious, and your heart always full of song.